Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Tata Sri Srimad's Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Tata Sri Srimad's Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktabinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. This thing is giving me a hard time now. All right. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this third day of February 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 18, entitled Conclusion, the Perfection of Renunciation. Text number 59 on page 699. 699. Okay. Yadahankaram ashritya nayotsya iti manyase mityaisha vivasayaste prakritis tvam niyokshati yadahankaram ashritya nayotsya iti manyase mityaisha vivasayaste prakritis tvam niyokshati yadahankaram ashritya nayotsya iti manyase mityaisha vivasayaste prakritis tvam niyokshati yadahankaram ashritya nayotsya iti manyase mityaisha vivasayaste prakritis tvam niyokshati. Bhushan. Yadahankaram ashritya nayotsya iti manyase mityaisha vivasayaste prakritis tvam niyokshati. Want to try it, Daniel? Yadahankaram ashritya nayotsya iti manyase mityaisha vivasayaste prakriti tvam niyokshati. Mahima. Yadahankaram ashritya nayotsya iti manyase mityaisha vivasayaste prakritis tvam niyokshati. Yadahankaram ashritya nayotsya iti manyase mityaisha vivasayaste prakritim tvam niyokshati. Word by words. Just follow along silently. Yat if ahankaram of false ego, ashritya, taking shelter, na yotsye, I shall not fight. Iti, thus, manyase, you think. Mithya eshaha, this is all false. Vyavasayaha, determination, te, your, prakritihi, material nature, tvam, you, niyokshyati, will engage. Translation. Well, before I read this translation, I got to read the previous translation because they go together. If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. If you do not act according to my direction and do not fight, then you will be falsely directed. By your nature, you will have to be engaged in warfare. Purport. Arjuna was a military man and born of the nature of the Kshatriya. Therefore, his natural duty was to fight. But due to false ego, he was fearing that by killing his teacher, grandfather, and friends, he would incur sinful reactions. Actually, he was considering himself master of his actions, as if he were directing the good and bad results of such work. He forgot that the Supreme Personality of Godhead was present there, instructing him to fight. That is the forgetfulness of the conditioned soul. The Supreme Personality gives directions as to what is good and what is bad, and one simply has to act in Krishna consciousness to attain the perfection of life. No one can ascertain his destiny as the Supreme Lord can. Therefore, the best course is to take direction from the Supreme Lord and act. No one should neglect the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or the order of the Spiritual Master, who is the representative of God. One should act unhesitatingly to execute the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That will keep one safe under all circumstances. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Vena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, we're coming to the climax, if you will, of the Bhagavad Gita. In a few verses we'll have text 65 and 66, which summarizes the whole teachings. But here, Krishna is already kind of summarizing things. This text 58, he's describing all the benefits of simply being Krishna consciousness, how you'll be able to cross over all difficulties. Matchitta, that's the first thing. Be conscious of me. Sarva Durgani Matprasada Tarishasi, you will transcend, or you will overcome by my mercy all Durgani. Durgani means difficulties or obstacles, impediments. Atachetvam ahankaram nashoksasi vinangsi. But if you act according to false ego, not hearing me, then you will be lost. You will be defeated in your life's mission. So this is instruction for us also, to become Krishna conscious. Then he will help us to overcome all difficulties in life. Now you may ask, well, we don't have to die anymore? Get sick, that'll be cool. Well, not in this body. In this body you still have to face all those things, but you can see the end of it. The whole point is that miraculously, beyond the conception of the materialists who have no idea of the soul, that we can overcome old age, disease, and death, and rebirth by becoming Krishna conscious, surrendering to him. Because the whole idea is that this material life is, in a very real sense, artificial. This absorption in ahankar, the false sense of self. That's what ahankar means, the false sense of self. And our whole activities have been predicated on that false sense of self, and meaning the bodily concept of life. So to learn that we're not really the body, we're spirit soul, that we've had millions, countless lives before, and in each of them we had our state of consciousness, maybe subhuman, maybe superhuman, but in all of them we've been in this false sense of self, and we've put all our energies and our attention and our efforts into trying to enjoy and carve out a place of happiness and security where there is no such thing, where the happiness can only be very temporary and the security is non-existent, because ultimately time, and the material nature will destroy the body, and everything that we've attached to the body, whether it's prestige or money or relationships with others, they'll all be destroyed. Krishna says very distinctly and concisely in the 10th chapter, Mrityu sarvaharas chaham. As death, I take everything away. Everything you may have accumulated in this lifetime, and you identify with relationships, whatever, is all destroyed by time. Because time destroys the body, and it's all related to the body, which is not really you, and whatever you've done according to karma and the ideas and the consciousness you form, that will determine your next life. That's the basic principle. So with that consideration, if we actually believe that, then we should really ask, our next question is, well, what can I do to mitigate that situation? And Krishna, and through the spiritual master and the Shastra, they describe the means by which we can't just mitigate it, but we can actually end the whole thing. This whole round and around and around in different identities. And even in this one lifetime, we have so many different ages that we go through, and we're practically different people. Our consciousness is different, you have to, it's not Satchidananda. It's just, Satchidananda means, Krishna is Satchidananda, the famous first verse in the Brahma Samhita, 5th chapter. Ishvarak Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Such an important verse. You know, you can just try to take your mind back 500 years or so. Lord Chaitanya is on his South Indian tour, and he comes across this, I don't even know if it was the whole book, I think it's just that one chapter of the Brahma Samhita. And he saw it was so important that he copied it or had it copied and brought it back and integrated it into the canon, if you will, of the literatures that were then being written by Rupa Goswami. And it's a very important piece of literature written by Lord Brahma himself. So he says there, Ishvara Parama Krishna. Krishna is the supreme controller. Now the supreme controller is what most people understand as God. There are various controllers, and we have our whole pantheon of thousands and even millions of demigods, of which we know some of the leaders as Brahma and as Chandra and Varuna and Vayu, and they're very powerful. They live a very long time, and they are Ishwaras much more than we are, but they're not Ishvara Parama. They're not the supreme Ishvara, otherwise known as Parameshwara, right? So is Krishna. Krishna is the supreme. Ishvara Parama Krishna. And then, very important, next line, Satchidananda Vigraha. He has a form. He's not just a force or a vague concept. He's a person. Vigraha means with a form. And it's Satchidananda, eternal, full of knowledge, full of consciousness, and full of bliss. Now, I've heard Prabhupada speak on this for instance. Now compare that to our own body, Asat, Achit, Nirananda. We're anything but Sat. Sat means eternal. Who can deny? The body is obviously very temporary. And Chit, there's so many things we don't know. So many things as you get older you once knew, but you don't know anymore. And Ananda, right, really. If we can be a little happy and have a little sense gratification, oh, my life is successful. No, it's a very poor substitute for actual Ananda, which is ever-increasing bliss. So his body is composed of that, his life is composed of that, and the whole spiritual world is of that character, Sat Chit Ananda. Sarvakarana Karanam, and he's the cause of everything, which is really one of the basic definitions of God. You take the list, you trace back the cause of everything. Like this building, well, it had many causes. One of the causes is the actual material of which it's built. It won't get built without that. But then there's the intelligence of the architect, which then created blueprints, and then various assignments are made, which eventually ended up with this building. So you could say, oh, it has many causes: the idea, the money that was put up to build it, and all these different things. But if you trace it back all the way, every one of those causes ultimately goes to Krishna. What about all these elements? The earth, the water, the fire, the bricks, the things that went into the building. Well, Krishna claims those are my energies, right? Right in the 7th chapter. Bhuma, Apa, Anolavayo, Kangmanu. So these are his energies. So in that way, he's the cause. But more importantly, he is the cause of the intelligence of the architect or any architects who went into conceiving it and drawing of it. So that's a very important part of the cause. And then there's the desire of whoever it was to build the building, I think a warehouse or something during the war, I forget what it was, but there was a need of it. And so that's a very important cause. But you trace them all back and they all go back to Krishna. All go back to Krishna. So he's the cause of all causes. Sarvakarana Karanam. So that one verse is so important. And then later on, and that's the first verse, and 28 verses later you come to text 29, where Brahma actually starts his song. And that's what devotees mostly chant. Beginning with a beautiful description of the spiritual world. Chintamani pakadasadma sukalpa vriksha lakshabhati susudabhida bipariyantam lakshmi sahasra shata sambrahma sevyamanam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. So what does that mean? Chintamani. Chintamani is this stone, probably would all call it like a touchstone. If you look up touchstone in dictionary, this touchstone is something else. But and then he once said, a philosopher's stone. You know, the stone that touches anything and it turns to gold. You know, so it's a spiritual, mystical stone. So Krishna is herding these cows amongst abodes built of this touchstone. And these Surabhi cows, or special cows, they never get old and die, you know, and they can give as much milk as you want and whenever you want, you know. And they're all fully conscious. This is so wonderful. Krishna is just as much a friends with those cows, and they love him just as much as his friends in the gopis. So, Chintame Prakata Sadmasu, Kalpa Vriksha, you've got these desire trees, you know. We've got these poor trees standing out here. They have no fruits. If they had fruits, I mean the coconuts, they couldn't plant them because they fall down and it could hit someone on the head. So they have these false coconut trees. And the poor things are standing there. I remember when I first came here and I saw them, we didn't have anything like it in Miami, you know. And they're still standing. When the winds blow, they tend to shed, and then there's a big job they have to clean it up, you know. But we don't want to be trees, you know. I mean, it's a punishment, you know, for something. But in the spiritual world, you've got these trees. They're fully conscious. Everything is fully conscious. You know, the ground, the water, everything. So the trees are there, and they're there, and the kalpa vriksha, kalpa means desire, so it means whatever you want from the tree you can get. I don't want just a mango. I want a perfectly ripe mango. It's just like you can drink it, you know, like you ever cut into it. Okay, here's 5 of them, you know. Like, no mangoes for me. I want pomegranate. Okay, here's the pomegranate, you know. So the trees are all reciprocated. So that's in the kalpa vriksha. So Chindamani Pakata Sadmasa Kalpa Vriksha Lakshavateshu Surabhir. So Krishna is surrounded by these thousands of cows that he's herding. Surabhir Avipariyantam, protecting them, herding them. And Lakshmi Sahasra Shatasambrame. He's being served by thousands and thousands of beautiful gopis, you know. So just that one verse, and it goes on, and he's playing the flute, Vedam Kwanandam, you know. So this is all from Brahma. He's created it, and he's, you know, visualizing the spiritual world. So this is the kind of, you know, and I remember, I'll just share with you an experience I had. This goes way back to, say, 79 probably. I was a resident of the legendary now 55th Street Temple in Manhattan, which Prabhupada, when it's 11 stories high, it was really quite a victory to get that temple. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford to maintain it because in the wintertime in New York, it cost $13,000. In 1979, you can triple it for today, to heat that building. Where are they going to get the money? You know, they're sending devotees out to collect. Anyway, they couldn't sustain it. But at that time, I was there. And I had memorized the Chintamani prayers, you know, and a bunch of devotees did. And we would go on the altar when they're dressing. They had some space behind the deities you could get. So we had, I don't know, 6 or 7 of us. And we chant these prayers while they're dressing the deities. I used to go up. It's quite a privilege. So this is the Krishna consciousness. So if you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of my conditioned life by my grace. But if you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. Now, what does lost mean here? You know, lost means that Arjuna, you know, of course, Arjuna is a pure devotee, so he's not going to do that. But he's speaking to us. He's speaking to us. You'll be lost means that just as you are lost now, you don't know your destiny, you don't know who you are, your mind and intelligence are wrapped up in the material energy, and you're a conditioned soul. And it's a position of suffering. We don't have even an inkling of the kind of bliss and happiness that we can experience in the spiritual realm, or even in this realm if we're Krishna conscious. So Krishna is laying out the alternative very just starkly here, and we should heed him. So we not heed our false ego. If you take shelter of the false ego and do not fight, then you'll be misguided. This is all false, and material nature you will be engaged in. You'll have to be engaged in warfare anyway because that's your nature. Okay, if there's no discussion on that verse, we go on. Swabhava Jaina Kaunteya Nibaddha Svena Karmana Kartam Nechasi Mohat Karisyasya Vashopitat Under illusion, you are now declining to act according to my direction. But, compelled by the work born of your own nature, you will act all the same, O son of Kunti. Purport. If one refuses to act under the direction of the Supreme Lord, then he is compelled to act by the modes in which he is situated. Everyone is under the spell of a particular combination of the modes of nature, and is acting in that way. But anyone who voluntarily engages himself under the direction of the Supreme Lord becomes glorious. And Krishna has explained at the end of the 14th chapter, if you work in that way, you will transcend the modes. You will not be bound by those modes. And those modes are very powerful. We may not know them by name, but we all know that in our course of life that we meet people who are by nature depressed, you know. They're really not, moved to really try to gain anything in this world. They've been beaten in some circumstance in their life, you know. And they may fall into intoxication and all of these different things. This is the mode of ignorance. And and we also know a lot of people who are totally materially engaged, really into making money and spending it and investing and having a good time and all this stuff. The mode of passion. And then we know a few people in the mode of goodness, hopefully we're one of them, who are interested in philosophical concerns, practicing yoga, asking questions, reading Be Here Now, and at least it used to be in the autobiography of a yogi, everyone read that in my day. But now there's so much more of that, and that you can really investigate. And you'll meet the Hare Krishnas on the street, and you'll be interested. Oh, it's a very interesting book, and you go home and what is it? The journey of self-realization, journey of just something like that. Yeah. So this is, and so we have our nature, but we can transform that by the process of Krishna consciousness. So we're no longer bound to what the modes of nature that we are right now. We can transcend. Now, the Prabhupada would quote this verse all the time, in text 61. This is Ishwarak Sarvabhutanam Riddesher Junatishtati Brahmayan Sarvabhutani Yantrarudhani Mayaya. The Supreme Lord, now it's interesting, just to point out, you may have noticed already, that Krishna goes back and forth between third person and first person when he's talking about God. He's the Ishvara, but he doesn't say, in another place he says, I am situated in everyone's heart, in the 15th chapter, but here he's saying the Lord is, he's the Lord. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities, who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. Let's just forget about that comma for now. I always thought it shouldn't be there. Purport: Arjuna was not the supreme knower, and his decision to fight or not to fight was confined to his limited discretion. Lord Krishna instructed that the individual is not all in all. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, or he himself, Krishna, as the localized supersoul, sits in the heart directing the living being. After changing bodies, the living entity forgets his past deeds, but the supersoul, as the knower of the past, present, and future, remains the witness to all his activities. Therefore, all the activities of living entities are directed by this supersoul. The living entity gets what he deserves and is carried by the material body, which is created in the material energy under the direction of the supersoul. As soon as a living entity is placed in a particular type of body, he has to work under the spell of that bodily situation. A person seated in a high-speed motor car goes faster than one seated in a slower car, though the living entities, the drivers, may be the same. Similarly, by the order of the Supreme Soul, material nature fashions a particular type of body to a particular type of living entity so that he may work according to his past desires. The living entity is not independent. One should not think himself independent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The individual is always under the Lord's control. Therefore, one's duty is to surrender, and that is the injunction of the next verse. So, the idea is that we're already surrendered. We just think we're independent. You know, I always give the example of the pandemic. You know, I mean, how many people are really thinking during the day? I hardly ever thought about breathing. That I'm the, of course, if you're doing pranayama, that's one thing. You know, if you get out of breath. But generally, you don't really think about it that much during the day. It's just going on, like your heartbeat. You know, you don't think about it unless it stops or gets, you know. But you know, so many things are happening to allow us to just go through each day. You know that thing. So the point is to become conscious. And you know, how is this happening? I always like to point out. I've done this recently that. Do we really need to find a proof for God? You know, just think of your own body, or anyone else's body, human body. You know, any body is amazing, but the human body is the most amazing with all the intelligence and all these things. Does it really make sense that this came about by chance over time, molecules? You know, it doesn't make any sense. You know, and as soon as you posit or come to the realization that it's very likely that there's a creator, there's an intelligence behind all this, then the next question is why? What's the purpose of it all? You know, why are we in this situation? Why do we die? Why isn't it impossible to be happy all the time? You know, that's a good question. But you're not going to find that question answered in some philosophy book, Western philosophy book. They have so many speculations, you know, like that. But you'll find that question answered in the Bhagavad Gita. The answer is in one sense very simple, is that we tried to imitate the Supreme Person. We wanted to be the controller. We weren't happy for one reason or another. We have free will, so it's possible to get that idea. I want to be Krishna rather than serve Krishna. I want to try it. Now, at one point, I know this is a fact. I've heard this repeated, although I haven't heard Prabhupada actually say it, but I've heard devotees who heard him say it, that Krishna tried to convince us not to go. Don't do it, you'll be suffering. No, I'm going to try, you know. We were stubborn. And here we are, all these millions of births later, who knows, you know. But we have a very great opportunity now. Because the only way to really cure this disease is through knowledge. We have to have knowledge, just like any even material disease, right? You remember when the pandemic hit, and you know there was no cure. This was a new variation of the COVID. It became the COVID, but COVID, you know, it was COVID-19. I mean, the COVID that manifested in 2019. There's so many other COVIDs. I forget what COVID stands for, but it's a type of virus, you know. So this was a new one, you know, a mutation, and there was no vaccines, and there was no remedy, and it was very contagious through the air. So suddenly, it was you know, it's a freak out, you know. So we all had to deal with that, you see. And why? Because the body is a very fragile machine. It's subject, you know, it has to have the air, but it can also carry these pathogens, and it's so dangerous, and that's what it means to be a conditioned soul in a physical body. So, you know, the philosophy we find in the Bhagavad Gita and other things, it's not something that we can figure out ourselves. It has to be given to us. But if you really start practicing Krishna consciousness, and you feel some of the benefits, and you read on, and you see that it makes sense logically. First of all, you know, if you were God, what would you do? Would you like to live like, you know, a life? All right, there's some ups and downs. I'll, you know, take the ups. No, you'd be blissful all the time. Why not? You know. The ultimate God, you wouldn't have anything to do. Prabhupada loves to say this phrase. He has nothing to do. What he means by that, it's a language thing. You have to really, you know, that he doesn't have to do anything. See the difference. Not that he doesn't have anything to do. He has a lot to do. He has to go out and herd the cows. He has to meet the gopis at a certain time. He has a lot of things that he does, all for his own pleasure, but he's got a lot of things he's doing. But he doesn't have to do anything, because he's a supreme controller. Just by his will, things are just organized just perfectly, you know. So that life in which you're always blissful, you're loved, and you're able to love all kinds of people and have these relationships, and nobody is jealous, and envious, and what's your enemy. There's no enemies up there. They're all happy that Krishna's happy. They're all participating in that, and that just makes him happy and makes you happy. So, this sounds like a lot of Pollyanna. Come on, are you kidding me? But the point is that we have these incredible intellects and pure souls. Of course, we have Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but you have Madhvacharya and Ramanujacharya and these towering intellects and pure, and they're all saying, yes, this is true. This other level of existence is real. You see, and so who are we to say no? Come on, it doesn't make any sense. I'm going back to my poker game or whatever it is. It's just foolishness to shut that off. And so that's why the most fortunate people, well, let me try it anyway. They say if you chant this mantra for an hour, something will happen. Oh, let me give it a shot. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Not bad. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. There's something there. That's what I did. I started chanting, and I wasn't really, I hadn't hardly read any books. I got the mantra, believe it or not, from a yoga studio, the Hare Krishna mantra. There was a pamphlet, on the glories of chanting this mantra. Anyway, I'll tell the story some other time. But so I said, well, I needed a mantra for my meditation. I was doing this meditation in Hatha yoga. So I started meditating. I invented it. I didn't learn this from the yoga studio. I said, all right, I got to meditate. I tried Om. I couldn't do it. That was too boring. So, but this mantra had a potency. So I said, okay, look, on the in-breath, I'll think of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. I'll hold it for half a beat. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. And then on the out breath, I'll think of, I'll coordinate that with the mind. That was my whole meditation. Believe it or not, I read in the books, in Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada said this is he didn't exactly say Hare Krishna, but this idea of coordinating the whatever your mantra may be with the breath is a bona fide way of meditation. And it was just it was so powerful. I was also chanting japa. I was working, and so I wanted. So everything became more credible. In other words, when I'm reading so many things about bhakti, because I had experienced to a very small degree the power of this mantra, then I had more faith in what I was reading, even though it may have been out of this world and it didn't jibe with the things that I already knew. So somehow or other, to acquire that faith or just interest, to want to explore more this process of devotion and the books that Prabhupada gave, is our greatest benediction. It's so fortunate. And it may very well be, let's face it, from a previous life. That for so many thousands of people who hear about Hare Krishna, they say, yeah, Hare Krishna, are you kidding me? But then someone says, yeah, I met one of them, they're really nice, and he gave me this book, and maybe I should read it. Anyway, so here we are at the end of the 18th chapter, and Krishna is about to give his ultimate instruction. And he's now this verse, he himself, as the super soul, is directing all living entities. And he'll direct us also, if we want it, how we can become Krishna conscious. That's it. So now he's saying, okay, surrender to him, surrender to me. 62. Tameva sharanam gaccha Sarvabhavena Bharata Tat Prasadat Param Shantim Stanam Prapsasi Shasvatam. Okay, 1 minute intermission for bodily needs. It's too hot in here. Could you turn that off? Also, it'll be a little quieter. I know I'm wearing my heavy jacket. Okay, translation. Translation. O Scion of Bharata, surrender unto him utterly, this Ishvara in the heart. By his grace you will attain transcendental peace and the supreme and eternal abode. Purport. A living entity should therefore surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart, and that will relieve him from all kinds of miseries of this material existence. By such surrender, not only will one be released from all miseries in this life, but at the end he will reach the Supreme God. The transcendental world is described in the Vedic literature, Rig Veda 1:22-20, as Tad Vishno Padamam Padam. Since all of creation is the kingdom of God, everything material is actually spiritual. But Paramam Padam specifically refers to the eternal abode, which is called the spiritual sky or Vaikuntha. You know how to do that? All right. It doesn't go off immediately. When it's, yeah. If you got it, yeah, push. There you go. So this recommendation that one should surrender unto the super soul sitting within means that one should surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Krishna has already been accepted by Arjuna as the Supreme. He was accepted in the 10th chapter as Param Brahma Param Dhamma. Arjuna has accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the supreme abode of all living entities, not only because of his personal experience, but also because of the evidence of great authorities like Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa. And this is also a nice model for us, is that with all of these great souls having surrendered to Krishna and experiencing this and writing books and taking the trouble, like Prabhupada did, to come to America and just to try to save us. Does it really make sense that it's all just a fantasy, a fairy tale? I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's just like you go to school and what do I know about atoms and molecules? But here's your teacher who learned from his teacher, it's a great school, here's the books, they all say it, here's it. So what's our basis of doubting it? Because we haven't been able to see atoms with our weak little eyes? You see what I mean? So of course you believe it, you see? So we have the same thing. We have our wonderful acharyas and teachers who not only are telling us it's true, but are showing us the symptoms of how it's true for them. That Srila Prabhupada was so tolerant and he went through such austerity, but he remained calm and blissful and self-composed. He didn't become depressed. He didn't try to do it. It was all simply an obvious transcendental situation, the nature that he showed. And we have so many accounts, like tomorrow is White Acharya's appearance day. Is it tomorrow? Yes, tomorrow at White Acharya's appearance day. And we've just had Vishwanath Chakrabarti. And it's so helpful to read these biographies of these great souls, because in one sense, they're also human beings like we are. So we can accept them as guides in our life. And it also helps build our faith. Now here's Narada Muni, who was just a little boy, and he got the association of these great souls, and he got, blessed. So we can also have the association of great souls. When we're reading this book, Bhagavad Gita as it is, we're getting the association of Krishna himself in his words, and Srila Prabhupada did through his words. And they have this special power. There's no doubt there. It says, well, I think it's like this, it might be like this, but no. It's all like, this is the way it is. And Prabhupada is giving all this, and it's his own experience as well. Okay, now I've lost my place. Am I in the middle of the purport to 62? I'm done with that purport. Okay. All right, let's do one more. Iti te jnanam akyatam guyad guyataram maya vimishyayata dasheshena Yatechasi tathakuru. Thus I have explained to you knowledge still more confidential. Deliberate on this fully, and then do what you wish to do. Purport. The Lord has already explained to Arjuna the knowledge of Brahmabhuta. One who is in the Brahmabhuta condition is joyful. He never laments, nor does he desire anything. That is due to confidential knowledge. Krishna also discloses knowledge of the Supersoul. This is also Brahman knowledge of Brahman, but it is superior. Here the words Yatechasi tathakuru, as you like you may act, indicate that God does not interfere with the little independence of the living entity. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has explained in all respects how one can elevate his living condition. The best advice imparted to Arjuna is to surrender unto the Supersoul seated within his heart. By right discrimination, one should agree to act according to the order of the Supersoul. That will help one become situated constantly in Krishna consciousness, the highest perfectional stage of human life. Arjuna is being directly ordered by the Personality of Godhead to fight. Surrender to the Supreme Personality of God is in the best interest of the living entities. It is not for the interest of the Supreme. Before surrendering, one is free to deliberate on this subject as far as the intelligence goes. That is the best way to accept the instruction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such instruction comes also through the spiritual master, the bona fide representative of Krishna. Yes, that's a very important point. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya explains that the super soul is in the heart. He's instructing us, but mostly we're not hearing him. We're focused outside, you see. So he comes outside as the spiritual master, or really spiritual masters, initiating and instructing spiritual masters, and the Shastra to guide us. So we have exposed, because that we can perceive. We can't hear the super soul in our condition, especially covered condition. But we can read the Bhagavad Gita, and we can hear the spiritual master. And in this way, we can benefit from that instruction. So it's all a question of, but then it's Tatejita Takaru. We have this free will. Why is the free will so important? Because there's no such thing as love without free will. Prabhupada famously said, I know some of you have heard this many times in my classes, that Krishna does not want us to love him at the point of a revolver. That's not love, is he? This whole idea that, God is a vengeful God, you better obey, otherwise he'll send you to hell forever. All right. That's not Krishna consciousness. There's no eternal damnation. Even though Krishna in the 16th chapter says, I send them down to hell forever, he doesn't mean it. It means, it may seem like a long time, but you always get another chance to come back to the human form. So here we are, all human beings. Does anyone want to deny it? And there's so much instruction directly for that. I love this verse. Labdva sudurlamam idam bahusambhavante manushyam artadamanityam apiya dira turnam yateta nabatena namityava nikshe yasaya vishaya sabato yutaksya. He says, you have attained what is very difficult to attain and rare, the human form of life, after many, many births. Labdva sudurlabam means very rare. Bahusambhavante, many, many births. Manusham, same word as English, human form, man, human. Manusham. And what is the special quality? Artadam. It can give you the final valuable goal of life. Arta is something valuable. In this Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha phrase, it means money. It means economic development, which people value mostly. But the most ultimately valuable thing can be gotten in the human form of life, going back home, back to God. But like all forms, it's anityam, it's not temporary. The clock is ticking on our human life. So one has to be dhira, a very important word, comes up at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, dehinos minyata deya, it's in there. Dhira means sober-minded, considering all angles, not to make snap decisions, to be very calm about it. So being considered, said, and then considering all angles, then turnam yateta, without wasting a moment, start striving. In other words, don't put it off. Turnam yateta napateda anumityavat, as long as you're still alive and functioning, anumityavat. So strive for what? Nikshreyasa. This shreyas and prayas. Prayas is what everyone utilizes, is immediate gratification. Or maybe after a little while, when I have my degree and my job, then I can really enjoy. That's also prayas. Shreyas is the ultimate good. Ultimate good. And this is not just shreyas, but nikshreyas, means the ultimate good, which is ending our life in the material world and conditioned life and going back home, back to God. And then he gives a warning at the end. Vishayasa vataksyaad. But if you stay in the realm of vishaya, sense gratification, that's so stupid. You've already experienced all of them in previous lives, practically. And where did it get you? Another material body to suffer birth all day. So forget that. Strive for the ultimate good, which is regaining our spiritual identity, our understanding, and giving up this conditioned life, and at the end of this life, returning back home, back to Godhead. It's our home. That's where we are. I'll end with one little poem I wrote. Maybe two of them, since we have a little time. But this first one is exactly pertinent. So it's describing the spiritual world, which you'll find so many beautiful descriptions of. Brahma Samhita. Next time, maybe tomorrow, I'll share that with you. But he says, So Krishna said, it's a painting of Krishna sitting in the forest in Vrindavan on a very comfortable seat, and he's got a little dove on his hand, and there's a deer, and there's a cow nearby, and another animal, which I forget, but another forest animal. So it's all very blissful scene. So his beautiful paintings, the sweetness of Sri Krishna's form beguiles. Still sweeter is his face, like autumn moon. But sweeter than the sweetest is his smile, whose luscious beauty makes the gopis swoon. Govinda's beauty captivates the doves, the swan, the deer, the cows, and every tree. Indeed, in Braja, every creature loves Sri Krishna and is drowned in ecstasy. That all-enchanting land is paradise, our home, where we may dwell eternally. Most welcome there are those who pay the price to learn to love Sri Krishna perfectly. So that's the whole process of devotional service. That's the ticket back home. Krishna welcomes us with open arms. You've revived your eternal, natural love for me. Let's go. Let's have some fun. Let's play in the forest. And that's what our original home is. There's no downside. Even when you're sleeping, you're dreaming of Krishna. Any questions? If not, I'm going to give you another poem, because we have a little time. And tomorrow, tomorrow is Advaita Acharya's appearance day, so we'll have a special. But the next time we meet, I think we'll definitely read the most essential verses. Oh, tomorrow's Tuesday. So Wednesday we'll have class. I'm not sure. Let me see what the schedule. I think all the festivities will be over by then. We can have a class tomorrow, because it's usually a half day. Advaita's appearance, fast, half day fast. Yeah. No, we won't have an evening special evening program. Sunday we will for Nityananda. I'm sorry. Taco Tuesday. Okay, that's good. Have you been to Taco Tuesday yet? Oh, this is Daniel's first visit here. Wait till you see. They have tacos and then they come here. A little philosophy. The kirtan is there, and the prasadam is there. So where's the class? All right, let's go to this class. All right, one more nice poem. So this one I think I shared this morning, but most of you weren't here. I don't think any of you were here, except you, but you probably forgot. No offense. Raghunath Das Goswami's appearance was yesterday. Very important, one of the 6 Goswamis. So this is a verse he wrote about the holy name. I think it's in the Padyavali. Radheti nama navasunda dasidu mugdham, Krishneti nama madhurabhutagada dugdham, Savakshanam sadabhiraga himena ramyam krittvata daiva bibame rasane chudarte. An excellent fresh nectar drink, you heard this morning, an excellent fresh nectar drink with endless subtle tastes, such as the name of Radha, by whom all 3 worlds are graced. Condensed milk that is wonderfully delicious, thick and sweet, such as the name of Krishna, in whom all attractions meet. Now mix these drinks, O thirsty tongue, and add the fragrant, cooling spice of love, a prize the wise will try to buy at any price. And then at every moment drink this beverage most fine, and make my heart supremely blissful, peaceful, and divine. And it's all about chanting Hare Krishna mantra. That's what that is. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much.